All right, Hypnotic back on TSN, and sorry for the delay with this interview. We're going to go ahead and try to make a call right now and see if this works. Stand by, please.
Hello.
Alex.
Yeah.
How's that?
Well, it sounds great, although you're coming through my speakers for some reason still.
Well, if you have them plugged in, you'll most definitely hear me through them, I would imagine. You're using the Microsoft Game Voice?
Yeah, that's one that they gave me, and it has a pass-through switch, so I can just flick one, and now you're coming through my headphones.
Well, I think you should...
Can you hear me just fine?
Oh, I can hear you perfect, and everyone should be able to hear you perfect as well, but I think that you should tell Microsoft to send me one, too. Maybe I can test it out and see if I can get it working.
You laugh. I'm going to do just that.
Excellent. I'll be checking my mail daily. So, again, I appreciate your patience. I was just kind of, and I guess I should explain this to the TSN crowd, too, because hopefully people won't be too frustrated with the... lack of promptness on our part, but I was just kind of, entering the TSN channel and, coming home from work, and I hear that Warwich, bombed out, so I figured no problem, I'll jump on the air and I'll play a couple tunes, and then he'll be back in no time. Then I find out he's doing a major interview and his cable died, so here I am, and I appreciate you hanging out with us and being patient, and of course to the missus and to your son, I believe, who's hanging out in the TSN channel as well. I think that's
better not be.
Yeah, well, let's see. There was some.
I think that was somebody smurfing.
Probably. So if you can just clue me in as to where you guys left off. I've never been unprepared for an interview, but I guess here's a good time for me to start.
Well, let me see. I think we were talking about the patch that's coming out that has the recordable demos and the cheat fixes, and I think we were talking a little bit about bringing back the nice maps with less fog and more trees.
Yes.
Which I know is something that a lot of people have asked for and was a big deal to the community. And, I can't speak to how it's going to be implemented. I know that it's something that the dev team is really behind, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Oh, as am I.
Some of the other things... Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was looking at some notes that I had on some of the things that I can tell you are in the patch. Is something that hasn't been a major issue, but I guess was a pretty easy fix, was getting the cameras more functional and getting rid of that fisheye view and making them work just like they did in T1.
Oh, great! That's huge because it's that was one thing that I noticed. A lot of the smaller things, and I had not heard a lot of complaints or a lot of people really bringing it up, but I had noticed it and kind of kept it quiet and never shared that opinion about the cameras. But they just very difficult. It's really a big throw off if you play Tribes 1 and then you jump to Tribes 2 and you deploy one and you want to look through it. It's kind of like it's completely different. So that'll be, and that is a fix that will be in this patch, or not a fix, but I should say a change.
Well, that's the plan. I really hate kind of making these sound like promises, because anything can happen between now and the time that this comes out. It may be something that in the beta test people decide sucks, and it might get yanked. So nothing like it's definitely coming out, but you'll probably see it in the beta, and you'll get to see if it works. And if it doesn't, then there's probably a damn good reason why it's not in there. But right now, the plan is to have that working as I described.
Excellent. And I apologize if this was asked earlier or if this was mentioned by you earlier, but regarding this patch, is this said to be pretty much the last fix-it type patch that is scheduled to come out for this game, or will there be, are they planning additional patches, or even I've heard of the Tribes 2 expansion kit or expansion software. If you've touched on that already, I apologize, but if not, I'd like to hear about that as well.
Well, in terms of it being the last anything, that's going to be dictated by whether or not the product needs anything else afterwards. If there continue to be problems, then certainly we're going to look into addressing them. But honestly, I think that the game's pretty solid right now. So most everything that we're doing is spit and polish and getting it really tuned just right. And of course, recordable demos are, it was a big missing piece, and we're very excited to have that back in there. The cheat fixes are key and important to have. The little things like having skins appropriate to the map is something that I've heard mentioned, and I would love to see it in there just because it's cool, and it's not a big deal, and I guess it's not a major change in any way, but something that just speaks to getting the product to a really AAA level. Now, and the plan currently is to have this out in beta form to you guys by the end of the month. That may still change, but that's the current plan, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And this might be off the wall, okay? And this is funny. I do a lot of stuff with community websites, involving tribes and tribes too. And I guess I have a lot of contacts and a lot of people that I've spoken with, and we've talked about this a lot. But is there some of the things that people miss about Tribes 1? Like some of the different voice commands, some of the different animations. Will there be any kind of expansion that you know of that is either, that will be able to be purchased, or something that will be like a free download on the different Tribes 2 websites, but adding some new features that people will be able to start using?
Well, it's certainly a request I've heard mentioned before. It's definitely not anything that you should look for as in this patch. It's probably adding sounds, sending people back to the recording studio, doing new motion capture for animations. That's a big project. Let me just go off a little bit on a minor rant. Start rant here.
Please do.
The one thing that frustrates me most when I see things in the forums and I talk to people in IRC is the word "just." Why don't they just do that?
Right.
Because people think that it's computers, it's easy. And really people have very little idea of just what is it that 200 people can spend years and years all working together on something to make it work. And that's just an amazing amount of coordination and talent and dedication and sleepless nights that, there's nothing that's just. There's nothing that you just flip a switch and you make it work. So most every request is heard and evaluated. Some things are much more complicated to implement. Some things can't be implemented because they would contradict with another thing that people have asked to be implemented. So it's always a hard decision, and you all know how tricky balancing can be and how easy it is to throw it off. So, understand that if something's not in there, it's usually for a pretty good reason, and we have a lot of gamers on our staff. Most everyone who works on this product plays games. So it's very, very infrequent. It happens, but it's not often that we'll see an idea that we've never thought of.
Right, and
it certainly happens, but
I can imagine. I can imagine that. With the animations. So just taking the animations. To me, it's not a big deal. I love the new animations. They seem very natural. I'm assuming that in order to create something like this, it's not just 2 lines of code and then boom, your character is dancing. I would assume that you actually have, like you see in the EA Sports commercials, for like hockey and stuff like that. You actually have the people, who are dancing or doing whatever with the little things attached to their body, and and I can imagine that takes up a lot of time and probably costs a lot of money. But
that's absolutely correct. To do any sort of modeling like that, to get the movements fluid and smooth, it's not something that you really want to hard code. It's something that you want to capture through the movement of an actual person. And it is. There's studios, and you go, and the people get hooked up with hundreds and hundreds of these little sensors that capture their motion exactly, and then that gets translated into code and gets placed, and it has to interact with the environment. So it's certainly not just it's certainly not just. Right. It's work. It's something that we do, and something that was implemented really well in the game, I thought, but not something that we're looking to add in the updating of the game. Certainly, it's been kicked around for future products. I'm going to be really shy of saying things like expansion or sequel because there's nothing like that that's been decided yet. But it's certainly something that's being talked about.
Now, another thing to mention, I guess, a lot of the, switching over to the mod community, a lot of the developers for these different mods, in some cases it's been brought up, for example, if I'm going to play base and, for instance, I'm going to play Renegades or Havoc or any other type of mod, will there be some kind of fix, or is there, and maybe I'm just not aware of it, that will allow multiple tables depending on the, multiple, I guess, loadout tables depending on the different mods, or is this something that is going to have to be created by some type of scripter on the outside? Hopefully I'm explaining this right.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. I went through the same thing. As a T1 player, I loved Insomniacs, but it always threw my favorites out of whack when I went to play base. I think that it's a hard call. Oftentimes, when I look at the work of people like Panama Jack and Cowboy and Mr. Poop and Crunchy and all of them, there's a lot of amazing talent out there, and I think that something like that, they're really good at handling, and if that's something that they can do, then it's probably not something that we need to devote our time to, and we can put our time towards something that they can't.
Now, good. Now, it's being mentioned in the channel right now, in the TSN channel, about auto map downloading. Now, before I ask about it, I'm going to make my comment. Now, I've played, and I don't consider myself a huge gamer because the only game that I really ever play is Tribes and Tribes 2. Although I do have Unreal Tournament and Quake, and I know that I believe it's Unreal Tournament that has the auto map downloading, and even with a fast connection, it is a pain in the ass for me, my opinion. But a lot of people want it. Is this something that's going to be available as an option in an upcoming patch?
Unfortunately, I have zero info about that. Dave and I have talked about a lot of different changes in the game as part of this patch and as part of other things, and I'm sorry, I just don't know where that stands. I will try to find out and get back to you guys. Okay,
and another off the subject of Tribes 2 for the PC. Just a question about the Tribes 2 for the PlayStation 2. Is this I know there's an outside software company that's doing the porting, but is Sierra...
Yeah, it's being done by Inevitable.
Right.
Inevitable Entertainment. The guys that used to be Iguana for Activision.
Oh, okay.
A really, really talented team.
Now, I've actually sent them an email, looking for an interview as well, and they referred me back to Sierra. So is Sierra still having, a ton of input, as to gameplay and the whole balancing of the game to kind of make sure that it sticks to pretty much the same role that it is on the PC, or is it, are they free to make changes, or, you know what I mean? Just maybe a little bit of input for those that have not heard about it.
Sure, I can fill you in. As I said earlier in the interview, Sierra is a publisher, and that means that what our company does as a function is take games that other people make and bring them to market, package them, advertise them, and sell them. What these guys are good at is making games. Now, we have a great relationship where we certainly have input into how the game is made and what the market is looking for. It's a perfect example with me bringing back to Sierra what you guys have been saying. With Inevitable, we certainly have say, but, and this is going to sound funny coming from a marketing guy, I really know that except when I'm 100% sure, I don't think it's marketing's place to tell development how to make games.
Right, that's a good point. And again, and I'm sorry for changing the subject and not sticking to the same subject and, more than one question.
Not at all. Did that answer your question about PlayStation 2? Because I'm in touch with those guys, and certainly
absolutely.
PC and PS2 both fall within what I manage. So I can answer questions about both.
It seems pretty much, hey, let the software guys develop the game, let's check it out, and then we'll review it from a marketing standpoint and then figure out if there has to be any kind of changes to fit a certain group of audience that we want to sell it to. If not, all is good. I believe that's what you were pretty much saying, and it's a very good point.
That's pretty accurate. I had the privilege of playing the PS2 version at E3 at the big trade show that we had in May, and my biggest fear was the controller. It looked great. They had tons of little eye candy that I don't see on my PC, certainly, because I run on a 450. But it was beautiful. It was smooth. It was fast. But I was worried about the controller, and I was really worried about how it was going to run with the gamepad. But after about 10 minutes, they have this really great layout that once you grasp it, again, you just don't have to think about it anymore. And we were playing, and the girl that was showing the game from QA was mid-airing me with the controller, and I was amazed. I really didn't think that you could get that kind of control with a console pad.
Well, that I know that myself, along with probably half the other Tribes and Tribes 2 players. I mean, that would probably be my sole reason for buying a PlayStation 2, is simply to be able to play Tribes 2 with another friend sitting right next to me on a console. I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Well, it's not just the two players sitting next to you. It's once Sony comes out with their modem adapter, they're going to be able to play against tons of players just like PC players. They won't be able to play PlayStation 2 versus PC, but they will be able to host a server and have a map with 32 people on it running around just like we do.
Well, that's going to be killer. I mean, I'm sitting in front of your big screen TV playing. Of course, if I had a big screen TV, but
yeah, me too.
Maybe Sierra will send you one of those, I guess, or Sony will send you one of those so you can demo the game. Now, another question that I'd like to ask, just like probably out of my own curiosity, is from the community standpoint, in Tribes 2. Are there going to be any changes that you can discuss, or any type of updates? Not talking about gameplay, but as part of the community, or has all of the problems, such as, like, for instance, my buddy list doesn't work still, and I haven't been able to figure out why, and I've tried to reinstall the game a couple times, and other people have mentioned that other certain parts of the community has not 100% worked for them as well. Are there still known issues that are being worked on?
There certainly are. The tough part is that as we solve more problems, the problems become less and less consistent. Fewer people have them. They're harder to reproduce. They're happening on either certain types of hardware, or worse, they're happening when you have a certain combination of software running, which is really tough to track down and really tough to eliminate. Most importantly, it's really tough to duplicate, which is what we have to do to solve a problem. We're collecting information. Those things that we can see, those things that we can reproduce, we fix. Other things are tougher. I know that a lot of people had been asking about the disappearing friend or foe indicators.
Right.
And I had asked Dave Georgeson about that, and he said, I've heard about it, but it's not anything I've experienced or my guys have experienced. I know, I know the guys aren't making it up, but we have to reproduce it on our machines in order to be able to address it. So it's a delicate process. It's tough, and it gets harder with every problem we solve, because then it shows up on fewer and fewer machines. Right.
That's a good point. And also, I had another question involving the community as well, but it kind of slipped. So I'm just going to change, into a different type of question. I'm not sure if you can answer, or if you do answer the more technical questions, involving the code and stuff.
I do my best,
but
it's really not my forte.
No problem. Well,
hang on a second.
Sure.
Hang on a sec. Someone wants to say hi.
Okay.
Hi, Milkman.
Milkman. I guess I
guess that had to do with something in the forum.
Right.
I wasn't paying attention.
I was just going to say that there must be something going on in the channel, because go to the T2 chamber. I'm watching Milkman X typing. Go out to the office. So I guess Milkman is spamming our channel.
Never mind.
Causing a ruckus. He made me forget my question. Okay. As far as Tribes 2, is concerned, and even going back to Tribes 1, a very different game compared to your Quake, your Half-Life and all your other first-person shooters, mainly because of its I guess 360-degree movements and all of these different things. What do you see for the future? I guess meaning a Tribes 3. I know it's hard to think that far ahead, but a Tribes 3 perhaps, another sequel. What's your opinion?
I certainly have big plans for Tribes as a brand and a franchise and a game. I guess in terms of vision, and it's certainly not just mine to have. Tribes 2 is a collaboration of a lot of different people and a lot of different visions, and certainly I would be remiss if I failed to mention Dave Georgeson as someone who really brought this product to us. But Dave and I both agree on the fact that, Monday Night Tribes, to us it's a sport, to us it's an obsession, to us it's something that you don't just play but you follow. It's something that you want to watch. It's something that when someone does it really well, it's like ballet. It's like art. It's unbelievable. So both of us want to take it to a point where this is something that people all across the country, all across the world, think of just in the same way that they think of basketball or they think of baseball or football, except that they can all do it together, and that's the direction that we would love to see this game go.
And very good. And hopefully there will be. I mean, hopefully my kids will grow up, even though I have none, and there'll be like a Tribe 7, and they'll be playing the hell out of it. But
well, having seen the success of shows like BattleBots on Comedy Central, and I was just watching the Anatomy of a Flag Cap movie that Lee had created for the launch of the game, and I was watching that thing over and over. I think I was really nostalgic for demos. But I was watching that, and I said, I would watch this. I would watch someone make a run on a flag every day.
Absolutely. I guess that brings up, a new idea. I guess is making an actual motion picture for Tribes. I think that would be pretty wild.
Not necessarily a motion picture,
but it'd be cool.
It certainly would, but more like where you watch a football game where every week you could maybe see a televised match between some great teams, and I think that would be good watching.
That would be very, very good watching. I don't know how well landmines will take into play for that, but it'd be pretty cool to watch that. Now, another thing that I want to mention, I guess this goes back to the games and the bugs that people have mentioned, but a lot of people are saying, I don't know if this is superstition or just bad coincidence, that when they play matches in tournament mode, a lot of servers seem to go completely haywire. I mean, pings jumping from 50 to 400, packet loss, and it happens, I guess, frequently. Frequent enough for me to ask about it, I guess.
I'm not really sure the issue there. I know, people have mentioned different lag issues, but again, I collect them and I send them off to dev. I try to follow it as much as I can, but unless it's something that I've seen firsthand, it's really difficult for me to speak to.
Okay, and I'm getting some. I'm going to try to answer some channels if some questions going on in the channel. There are a lot of people sending me private messages that I'm trying to filter through. I'm sure. My game freezes. Why? Tribes 2 for the Palm Pilot anytime soon. Let's see. Dynamics, are they still planning on the spectator tools and shoutcasting tools like live video?
Hang on, let me think about how to answer this. There is something really, really exciting happening on that front that I absolutely cannot say anything else about.
Oh, a tease.
Sorry.
Okay, so
I do have some good news on a couple other fronts that might interest people.
Absolutely.
For one thing, because I've certainly gotten to know this community much better in the last couple months, and because I really would like to bring the rest of the Tribes 2 players, because certainly you guys aren't all of them. There's a ton of people out there who have no idea what a shoutcast is, who have never heard of the TWL or OGL. They just don't experience this game to the same degree, and I think a lot of them would love it. So to that end, we've been talking to both TWL and OGL about getting a feed for their scores right on the Sierra site, right on the Tribes 2 main site, so that when people come to find out about the game, they understand that the community is a completely integral part of it. I would invite both TSN and WSBN to allow us to link to shoutcasts of games. I think that when a game has its own radio station, that's a mark of coolness.
Absolutely, and it means it, I guess, results in a very tight-knit community as well. So that's some good news. That's some big news and something that we can all look for. Now, going back to in-game, someone is bringing this up, and I've seen it as well, and it cracks me up. But I have entered a server before, and there have been like 10 players, all with the name Null in capital letters, N-U-L-L. Is there any explanation to this, or is it going to be one of the mysteries of Tribes 2?
I've heard about this. I haven't seen it. I haven't been playing all that much, so it's not surprising that I haven't seen it. I mentioned this to Dave. He shrugged. We're going to look into it, but I don't know what's causing it. I can answer the question about the white triangles that people seeing where on a server, someone will be running apparently in single-player mode, and word has it that that's related to a mod that people have installed. So, at least that's what I heard. So, if that answers the question for anyone.
And okay, somebody is sending me this question, and I'm not familiar with it because it's never happened to me. But spawning in God mode and being able to shoot still.
Yeah, when you spawn it and you're invincible and you start shooting.
I've never seen.
I'm not sure what the question is.
Well, I guess the question is
when you
is that I've never experienced it, so I didn't really know how to word the question. It's never happened to me, but I guess if it's happening to this person, is this something that I would assume is going to be fixed in this next? Probably one of the cheats or the bugs you were talking about should be fixed in this coming patch.
Let me see if I can answer. When a person respawns in Tribes 2, they are invincible for, I believe, up to 5 seconds. They're also invisible for an amount of time.
Right.
The invisibility lasts, but if you start shooting, you are no longer invincible. You are not in God mode. So if you see someone, if you're raping a base and suddenly someone spawns and you see them start shooting at you, you can go ahead and start shooting right back at them, even though you can't see them.
Okay, I'm getting this. And what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to word these questions as best as I can, but I'm trying to actually answer some questions from the people in the channel that don't have the luxury of speaking to you like I do. This question is the difficulty in deploying that came with the last patch intentional, or is that a bug that will be fixed?
I think it's a setting that Dev wanted to try. I know that it's sometimes a little tough to deploy in certain areas. It's also something that I've mentioned to them to look into. I don't think it's anything that's going to be addressed in this patch, honestly, because it's just not as critical as some of the other things or as easy as some of the other things. But we'll see how it goes, and if it becomes a serious problem, we'll have to take a closer look at it.
Okay, and another question from the channel. Is Dynamics going to change the energy pack boost that was recently added?
I don't know. We've talked about kind of a possibility in still tweaking with gameplay, and at this point we're really, really careful because for the most part it works. So I know that there are some adjustments that are being made, but I don't know what they are exactly. And if I understand things correctly, what Dave wants me to do is to check out the adjustments without saying what they are, just to see if I notice things rather than if I'm when I'm told that this has been tweaked by 1.7%, to see if it really makes a difference and what kind of difference and how you notice it in play. Okay. So yeah, I think there will be some adjustments. I don't know what they are. I don't think any of them will be even remotely major, and that's why we're having a beta period so that we can see how they work on a large scale.
Okay, and is the Clan News tab in the browser going to be re-implemented?
That I don't know.
Okay, and how about
check on that.
And this was mentioned before the release of Tribes 2, but Tribes 2 for the Macintosh. Is that a possibility?
I suppose anything's a possibility, but I certainly haven't heard any conversation about it. And my experience is that the Mac market is very tough to penetrate to make it even worthwhile to make the port, let alone make money on it. So, I wouldn't really hold your breath on it, but if a good deal comes along and we're able to deliver it to another market, then certainly we're not going to pass up a great opportunity.
Okay, and I guess regarding the ELF, is the range on the ELF gun going to be reduced? Also, will they address it taking away momentum?
Again, all those would probably fall under the gameplay changes that we're going to try. And I told Dave that I would just try them without him telling me what they are. So I really don't know, but we'll find out. I think that any changes at this point are going to be really, really minor. So it's going to be the kind of thing. There's not going to be anything where where you notice a tremendous difference. We're really trying not to change the strategies that are already in place, but just kind of augment. So we'll see how they go.
Okay, and let's see. You were somebody's asking me to ask you to finish the discussion on TribesCon 3. I guess you were talking about this with Warwich before he got disconnected.
It's something that definitely I had wanted to shamelessly plug as part of a conversation about tourneys. As I said earlier, I really see Tribes 2 as a sport. I see it as a competitive game more than anything else. To that end, I think that for a game like that to thrive, there has to be plenty of opportunities for recognition and success. So I'm working with a number of companies on sponsoring a whole slew of LAN tournaments, and these really aren't going to be aimed so much at the leagues and ladders as the more newbie players. It's going to be smaller teams, and they're going to be playing online for some really cool prizes. We're also, this is kind of fresh news as I found out today, it's very possible that I'm going to get a little bit more money for Tribes in terms of marketing budget, and I'm going to be able to use some of that to put up some cash prizes for some of the tournaments that will be happening from now until the end of the year. And the surprise that I've been holding out for Colossus is that I would like to, on behalf of Dynamics and Sierra, put up at least a $1,000 prize for TribesCon 3.
Wow. As Beatstick would say, wow. Excellent. And I'm sure that's exciting for everyone who's going to get a chance to compete. Now, if I am playing solo and not with a team, am I still eligible to win the money?
You know what? I'm going to let the organizers of the event figure out how that money's going to be used. I don't know if they want to put it up as prize or if they want to buy all you guys lunch or whatever they want to do with it. But, I really appreciate the community, especially this small part of the community, and I really want to give something back, and I think this is a good way of doing it.
Excellent. Well, that's a little bit of good news. Also, is Dynamics ever going to bring back the real IRC? Originally, with Tribes 1, we have all of the IRC and MIRC people, and it was really huge for the community, as opposed to using the Tribes 2 IRC and have to be proprietary towards that. Is that something that could happen?
There's two answers to that. First of all, I think I've seen someone reference a script that had an MIRC DLL in it, but I have no personal experience with that, so that's all I know. The other thing I can tell you is that one of the things that all this proprietary technology, as opposed to using established things, gives us is security and cheat protection. And, just the other night we all saw how some of the channels got hacked and people got booted off. And IRC is certainly not a secure way of communicating, and it's not that difficult to hack. So by having it set to this proprietary technology, that assures us that makes people go through the authentication server. It makes sure that they bought the product and they're supposed to be playing it, and it helps us prevent cheating to a much higher degree than you'll ever see in something like Quake or Counter-Strike.
Okay, and do you? Let's see, Cool Guy would like to know what your tribe's name is so he can go pub with you.
My pub name is Marweas.
Marweas. Now I finally know how to, believe it or not, I've seen you post in the TribalWar forums, and I've even sent you a couple emails, and you did respond, but I've never really quite figured out how to pronounce that ending WEAS.
Well,
section
it changes
of your
from
name.
day to day, but it's better written than said.
Absolutely, it looks cool. And looking cool is definitely important, especially when you're playing games. Well, I'll tell you. I mean, you've answered a lot of questions, a lot of things that that I didn't even think that I would be able to think of, and it just kind of appeared. And I'm not getting any more.
Well, then
go ahead.
Let me add just a couple quick things because we really do need to wind up. I can't believe it's after 9 o'clock here. It's probably midnight your time.
It is
if you're on the East Coast. I wanted to kind of follow up on the LAN and tournament thing and let people know that as part of what I'm setting up, I would like to invite a lot of press to an event sometime in the near future and let them see how some very, very talented gamers play. And I don't think it would be good as an event like TribesCon, but I really would be interested in getting one of the uber REIT teams to get them together and to get them to play against a bunch of editors and really show them how it's done. Because in reading a lot of the reviews in the magazines and on the websites, even though they gave us really high marks, it was really clear that a lot of these people just have no clue, and they didn't even scratch the surface of what this game really is. And when you get a tight team and you put them on a server and they spank you so hard and you feel great, you feel honored just to be spanked by them. That's how good they are. And I would really love to do that to the editors that sometimes feel like they know it all and they can say it all about the product. And I would just love to see how they fare against someone like 5150 or Vanguard or
I'll own them all.
Any of the other awesome teams.
I will own them. I will own
all
them
by yourself.
For you. I got your back, man. Any of these people that give you negative press, you just let them know to hop in a server with me, and I'll steal their team's repair pack because that's my job, and no one does it like me. Well, I definitely have to say, I mean, and just giving you, giving you guys credit, you guys have taken a lot of firing from the firing squad, and that being the community that's very vocal and very public about their opinions. And I think that, that a lot of people's opinions has really circled, complete 180, in the right direction as far as I'm concerned, because, I mean, this game has turned out to be, phenomenal. I know that I can say for my own self that, I'm addicted, and I wasn't, earlier.
On behalf of the team, thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. So, keep up the good work. And if you have any, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on? I know you probably want to get off to sleep, and the wife's probably bugging you as well.
Actually, she's been wonderfully good. Not just keeping the baby busy, but it looks like entertaining people in the forum or on IRC while we were trying to get the phone fixed. The other thing I wanted to add maybe is, provided that she lets me, or maybe she comes with me, I would very much love to go to TribesCon, and I hopefully will. And I strongly recommend that as many of you go as you can. I would love to see you all there. I would love to see how you all play and put faces to handles. And just a big shameless plug for TribesCon 3.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure we'll be posting more news about that on all of the major tribe sites, I guess, in the next, few weeks. When exactly is TribesCon 3?
It's at the end of August.
End of August. Okay.
And Colossus, I think, has a lot more info on that.
Okay. Well, I'm sure he's going to be very vocal as well, and hopefully, people can read about it on all the major tribe sites. I'm sure I've seen a little bit about it on TribalWar and some of the other sites. So, excellent. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to answer all these questions. And again, I apologize for the lack of organization on my part for when I first got this shoutcast thing set up.
You did a good rescue there for Warwitch.
I appreciate it. Although Tatiana is saying I talk too much, so I guess this is my cue. This is my cue to hang up.
Well, it's been great being on TSN. I'd love to come back, and I would love to. I saw a person a long time earlier in the interview ask about Dave Georgeson and where he's gotten off to, and poor Dave has just been absolutely swamped with work. I talk to him just about every day, and he's always asking how guys are and what's going on, and he's really, he misses not being the face man for Tribes for a while. But I would definitely, once he comes out of the burrow and the patches are in good hands, I'd love to bring him out and let you guys talk to him and
Yep, tell him I'll stop spamming his email like I used to if he comes back out to the public. I know he hates that, I'm sure. Cool. Well, again, right, I'm gonna let you go back to your thing, and I would love, for you to be on our show again. Anytime you have anything that you want to say to the public, please feel free to drop us a line, and we'll get you on air, whenever is good for you.
All right. Talk to you later, guys.
Thanks a lot, Alex. All right, and that was that. That was my rescue version of the Alex interview from Sierra, of course, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it. And Tatiana is dying to get on air, and I am not going to let her. I think I'm going to play some more songs. Maybe I'll play some of my comedy bits that I have saved for you folks. And let's see. Maybe I'll just sit here and take up some time. In any event, excuse me, I just had to, after that long, extensive interview, I had to take a sip of my drink here. I'm going to go ahead and play a song for you folks real quick, and hopefully somebody, I'm not quite sure who, will be on air to take over. Okay, one thing, Rivet Girl sends this in, and I was supposed to mention this around midnight. There's a pickup going on, and this is Tribes 1, I believe. This is a Tribes 1 pickup game. And it's going to be taking place on Cheater's Wayside, and the password is Elmo. So if you still play Tribes 1 and you want to go ahead and take part in this pickup game, it's on Cheater's Wayside, Tribes 1, and the password is Elmo, E-L-M-O. So be there or don't. That's your choice. Anyway, we'll be back in a minute. You're listening to Hypnotic on TSN. Stick around.